I just got done watching a video over at Genetically Modified Skeptic where this kid gives 4 pointers on how Christians could better persuade atheists or convert atheists. And one of his main points is instead of assuming what the other person believes, why don't you ask them questions about what they believe? And with that, I wholeheartedly endorse that point, but it's not because this kid brought it up, but because that is a 2,000-year-old concept that comes straight out of the scriptures. You see, Jesus is the one that told us to treat others the way we want to be treated. And James furthers this by saying, you should be quick to hear and slow to speak. And so I just love it when atheists propagate Christian ideals, but, play loose with plagiarism. So he addresses 4 points, and one of them is he states that many people make the mistake of thinking that atheists have never had a real religious experience. And I could dig into that, but I'm going to back off for a second and just address something that he missed. His point is that he has had a religious experience, that he was a Christian in the past, and now going into the future, he's just going to be an atheist. And when he argues this point with people, they say, well, you didn't have a real Christian experience. The assumption there that he is making is he is comparing his subjective experience to their subjective experience. And he doesn't know if his experience was real or not unless he does know it was real. And so how in the world can you compare one subjective experience with God to another subjective experience with God? You could try to cross-reference and share and talk about it, etc., but you're really not going to know. So whereas they might make the mistake and say, you didn't have a true experience, if he just wants to be logical, how does he ever know that he really had the right experience? Unless he had the right experience. Further, he said one of the mistakes that Christians continually make is that we assume that atheists and Christians think the same way, but they just have different values. And then he dives into all the epistemology and the differences in the way people think. And you don't really know a person until you dig in and know a person. And to that, I just want to say, you're not even old enough to have an epistemology yet. Now, I know people go, that's poison the well, and you're attacking and disparaging. Let's just be reasonable here. So this kid looks like, at youngest, he could be 16. And this is 4 years ago. I did see a video where he now has facial hair. Congratulations. So, but the most he might have been 21 or 22. Has he really had time to research epistemologies? And he even reveals in this video that he didn't even become an atheist. That he didn't even read an entire atheist book until after he became an atheist. So how long has his epistemologies been grounded, or where did he get his epistemologies from? Or did he, I think probably what happened is he was in a religious household. That was a Christian household, but didn't implement Christianity well. Then maybe they taught it, maybe they're pastors and teachers, and maybe they are serious, but at home there's this kind of back and forth dynamic where, parts I will teach it, but maybe I don't live it well. And if we don't bring works to our faith is dead, okay? And so if a kid at home is seeing that his parents aren't really putting the work into their faith, he kind of walks away with this idea that this whole thing is fake to begin with. And I think that even in this, he has been hurt in the matter. So it looks like he sank his teeth into the first alternative concepts that popped up. Didn't even think them through, just sank his teeth into the first things that come up that would offer him an alternative to the ugliness that he was under. But as far as us thinking differently, yes, people think differently, but here is something that has to be factored in. There is only one logic. There is only one logic. You either use logic properly or you use it illogically or wrongly. And if you're using logic improperly, someone can come up to you and confront you and say, hey, I don't think you're thinking about this correctly. Now, I will say that this kid has probably been attacked by tons and tons of shallow Christians who have tried to convert him and probably have made the same mistakes again and again and again. I don't doubt that, because there's more shallow Christians and half-hearted Christians than there are deep and sincere and knowledgeable Christians. So I don't doubt that he has faced a barrage of these things. But for him to think that he is right just because atheists think differently, because they've got a different spectrum of thought, that doesn't even approach logic. This is just about correct or incorrect. And one of the reasons that he makes videos and that he debates people at all is because that he believes there is one logic, and out of that, you're either right or you're wrong. Further into this, he goes on to what I would just call a tangent. And at this point, he is mudslinging. He just kind of mudslinging. He said that don't believe theologians and don't believe, these Bible teachers per se, because they go to colleges where they are basically indoctrinated. They're just told how to think, and everybody outside of them is condemned. And you just have to worry about our thinking, our way of thinking, and don't worry about the rest. And he said, this is not like the universities who gather the information, who consider all of the ways and the epistemologies. I'm kind of filling in for him here. He said, they considered all these things before they come to a conclusion. And I thought that point was very, very telling, because here's this young, let's split the difference. If I didn't finish my point, I've got ADD. 17, this kid, the youngest, looks 17 at the most. He's like 21, 22, and that was 4 years ago. So let's split the difference, say he was 19. Does a 19-year-old have a full and complete grasp of what all of the Bible colleges and Bible universities and all the theological schools and all the apologetic schools, do they have a really good grasp of what all of they are teaching? And have they gathered all of the information that all of these schools just indoctrinate? And did he gather all that before he made this conclusion? I mean, wow. Someone so young having gathered all of that data ahead of time. And if you go back in the video, one of the things he said is, I asked, those around me, do they believe in the Bible as the authority? And they said yes. And he was like, do you think that I think that atheism is the authority for my life? We don't just believe things because they're authoritatively stated. Well, got a question for you. If he doesn't believe things just because they are authoritatively stated by other atheists, then how did he come to this conclusion about all these other theological schools and they're being indoctrinated? Did he do all the surveys? Did he study? Did he attend all of these universities? Did he call them all up and do phone interviews on what they all believed before he came to his conclusion? Or did he accept that conclusion from somebody else's mouth by authoritative faith? I think it's obvious. I think that is very obvious what has happened here. To push that a step further, he's acting like theologians never really interact with atheists. And he's like, y'all don't know how we think. Well, yes, we do, because we interact with you over long periods of time, and we interact with you deeply. And some of us were you. Now, I know this kid was a Christian at one point, and you got to fight with the definitions there of type 1 atheism or type 2 atheism. But out of all of this, what is the grasp that he has? Does he have a solid grasp on the colleges and what they teach? And here's my final point, and I'm sorry, I've kind of lost the focus. The final point is that there are theological colleges out there that are so close in their thinking, they're so close in their analysis to atheism that you can't tell them apart. So this kid he absolutely proves he has no clue what he's talking about, that whoever he's authoritatively quoting has no clue what they're talking about, because he says all of these theological institutions teach the same thing. They're all indoctrinated. And as I'm telling you, no, they don't, because very left-leaning theological colleges are so far left, they're not even Christian. And so they actually teach things that are more in line with atheism, which just proves this kid really doesn't have a grasp of what he's talking about. I'm sorry for that, but I do agree with him. We need to be charitable in our conversation. We need to investigate things thoroughly, but it isn't about different ways of thinking. It's only about thinking properly.